You're listening to John the Recruiter podcast, JTR, where we discuss everything recruiting. If you're looking to get into recruiting or to become a re-energized recruiter, stay tuned and be prepared to be motivated. Welcome to John the Recruiter podcast. Today we are going to cover the prospecting mode mining. Mining combines all social media and paid platforms us recruiters use to produce candidates. We covered some of the social media back in episode 4, and I'm going to add to it here. Remember, I'm starting with the basics for those just getting into recruiting or who want to improve. I will get deeper and more advanced in later episodes. So let's go mining. What are the best platforms or job boards to use? I think it can depend on what field you're recruiting for, right? Corporate positions, medical positions, IT positions, engineers, executive recruiting, or even hourly positions. Most recruiters would start with LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Cafe, ZipRecruiter, Indeed, Monster, Career Builder, Dice, and there's many more. Once you research what's the best platform is for your position search, there are multiple things I feel you need to do to produce candidates. If you have access to job boards like ZipRecruiter, Indeed, or Dice, and there's others with like a resume database, you need to be able to conduct specific searches for what you are looking for. You usually get a specific amount of context in a specific period of time, so you have to be strategic to not waste any. This is why I try the free stuff first, then go to the paid versions after that. Remember in episode 4 when we discussed social media, we talked about posting your job on social media. Make as many connections as possible, especially in related fields to what you recruit to. You want to get as many friends and connections as you can so when you post things, they see it. Post company benefits, insights like employee awards, and then use other employees as brand ambassadors to help your recruiting efforts. Then make videos or short clips to post. Recently, I've been posting like short clips. They've been getting a lot of views. That really helps. That will also attract candidates. The short videos have really been getting a lot, and really for the generation that you're recruiting, they like to watch those things. Once you reach out to potential candidates you feel you want to screen, respond quickly. If they connect with you, then set up the next step. You have to be as fast as possible because when they're looking, they have a sense of urgency. So to be an effective and a great recruiter, you have to have that sense of urgency. The more engaged you are on this, the more success you will have. Remember to track how many you reach out to, how many you connect with, how many you screen, how many you get to interview, how many you get hired, along with the time it takes. This will give what you need in the future to invest to be successful. And what we've talked about so far with making a plan in the prospecting modes, if you track all that and then you put all this down and you say, hey, this is the time I put into it. This is when I planned it. So now you know the time you put into it, what was successful and when it was successful. And this is going to help you in the long run as you track more and you get more. Using paid platforms like Indeed, ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, Recruiter Lite, and others, like posting jobs, for instance. I see that a lot on these platforms. People post jobs. What they'll do is copy the job description and just put it out there. I'm okay with adding the job description. I used to do that, but to get candidates to view it, you need to grab their attention to click on it. The key to get them to apply through those sites so you can get their resume and contact information. That's the whole part is I want them to click on it so I can get their information so I can contact them and have some type of conversation with them, whether it's over email, text, or a phone call. You want to be able to connect with them for the position and possible other positions in the future if this one doesn't work out for them. Plus, you want them to be a source for referrals. When posting on these sites, you should always add the pay range, the experience needed, expected start date range, the shifts, and as much information as possible about that position. That way, the candidates know when they apply that they can have all that information ready. And when you start that conversation, it's not time wasters for either of you. You do not want candidates to think it's a scam. There is a lot of scams out there nowadays, especially when it comes to like remote positions and other things. So a lot of people are very, as they say, gun shy about things like that. If a candidate applies, be prompt in your response and schedule the next step as soon as possible. Be transparent about the process as soon as possible, even if it is slow. I've had job positions that I knew were going to take a long time. And I told the candidates, hey, I know you're applying for this, but this might take 30 to 60 days before we know the end result for this. Are you willing to wait? Because if not, we can look for something else. I don't want to waste your time. If you're transparent and honest with them, it's going to be a better result for you. And if they say, hey, you know what, at this point, I need something faster, you didn't lose that candidate. They could end up being a candidate in the future, or they could send you referrals. And they're going to appreciate that. Keep in contact with them through the process and communicate with them. And also communicate with the hiring managers. This could help you in your hiring percentages. Plus, it's going to help you with your hiring percentages with your peers. As you build both the relationship with the hiring managers and the candidates, it's just going to make you look better, and you are going to get a reputation out there as the person to go to. If they get turned down or don't get selected for an interview or anything that still could make them a viable candidate for other positions in your company, reach out, thank them, and see if you could let them know if there's other opportunities arise. Wait a little bit and let things settle. Then ask if they also know anyone that you should be talking to. Don't forget to reward those who refer people to you, or it's never going to happen again. Now let's talk about going through some resume databases on these sites. Most of these sites allow you to access their thousands upon thousands of resumes, right, to find candidates. Well, as a recruiter, where do you start? I always started with breaking them down using keyword searches by like location, industry, job title, skills, and also like sometimes you had the last time they updated their resume. You can use the Boolean searches or Boolean searches, which was named after a mathematician, a famous one, George Boole, and an essential tool for recruiters to find relevant candidates fast. I always said work smarter, not harder. When I learned this, it made it a lot easier for me to get into a database and say, okay, there's 10,000 resumes. I want to find this specific engineer. And instead of going through all these resumes, you can type in the specific words, then you can use and or, and it can really break down to going from thousands to maybe less than 100 and really save you time by doing that. And once you get that down, then it gives you a better look at what candidates are really going to fit into what you're looking for. And some of these sites might only give you, like I know when I used Indeed, there were some times where you had, hey, you have 100 or 200 contacts a month. So you had to be really careful with the contacts you're using when you're reaching out to some of these resumes. So you really wanted to do these searches, so you were only reaching out to specific candidates. And when you're working passive candidates through resume databases, it can be challenging. So you really want to look at the ones that, if they've updated their resume recently, Well, to me, that means they're updating it for a reason. They're probably looking for a job, or they've had something bad happen to them at their current job. So those would be the first ones that I would go after. And then after that, if you do have the passive candidates that maybe haven't updated their resume, if you're reaching out to them and they do respond back like, hey, I'm interested in talking to you, you have to know how to talk to them. And that's something we're going to cover in a later episode. You can reach out to a lot and get very few responses. I always started with the most recent and updated the resumes first. Like I said, I figured if they updated the resume, the opportunity's there for me. And I always kept track of how many that I reached out to. Remember, it's all the law of averages. And you got to have a place to start when you do this. So if you know, like, hey, I reached out to 200 and 10 responded, and out of those 10, I sent 3 of them to interviews. Well, that's a law of averages. So in order to get 3 to interviews, I got to reach out to 200. So there's a start. It's just like any prospecting. The more you reach out to, the better your chances. If you use your narrowing searches to identify ideal candidates, when you get responses, you know they will be good. And those narrowing, you know you have a better chance of getting hires once you have the good candidates. These things can help you on almost all platforms that you could use. The key is you need to be consistent. Track what you do, analyze what works, and do not be afraid to try new things and fail. And that's one thing I said, you can't be a great recruiter if you don't try new things and fail. For mining, follow up is very important for candidates, even after they are in the application process. They probably are still a part of your social media, so you want their experience to be one to remember and a good one. When you're mining on all these platforms, if you just reach out to somebody, put them in the application system, and never talk to them again, they're going to remember that. They don't just get on your social media platforms and then never speak to you again or unfriend you after they get a job. They continue that. So after I had them on my social media or I found them on Indeed or ZipRecruiter or another platform, I usually, connected with them on LinkedIn or Facebook because I wanted to use them for referrals. And we're going to talk about referrals in another episode. But once they're in my company, then I would use them as brand ambassadors. Well, say they didn't get hired. Well, they're still on my social media. Well, hopefully I kept in contact with them and said, hey, can I still use you just in case another opportunity arises and maybe talk to you about some other opportunities? And if some of them did decline and say, hey, John, you know what? I just don't think your company's right for me. But hey, if you have something, feel more than welcome to reach out to me. I kept such good relationships. No one ever said, no, don't ever reach out to me again. And my whole part was if I still would keep in some point of contact with them because of the mining I did through social media and the other platforms, I was hoping to get referrals out of them. And they still saw all my posts. And that was the whole point of this mining prospecting. It's not just social media, it's that they see everything that I'm putting out there. And maybe it's somebody in their family, one of their friends, maybe it's somebody that they know that just is having a bad time at work or just lost their job, or I post something that's not a skill that they have or a job that they're doing, but they know somebody. And they know that how I treat people as a recruiter. So they automatically think, hey, I'm going to call John and give him my friend's number, or I'm going to call my friend and have them reach out to John. And that's kind of the whole key to this prospecting and mining thing is staying consistent where you keep all this going. And it is hard to manage all these platforms, but that's where we go back to creating a plan, put it on your planner and sticking to it. And this all starts to tie in with each other as we go through. And when we get through all the prospecting modes and we tie it all together, if you keep up with it, you will be successful because you have all these, it's like having all these little fishing lines out there and all these things are working and different things are coming in. And most recruiters And some people might get mad at me, but only rely on something like this, mining. A lot of recruiters say, I only do this prospecting mode. I've been seeing recently on some of the groups I'm a part of on social media that says, hey, I've been using this platform. Is anybody else having a rough time getting good candidates from it? And what else are you doing? So that means that they're struggling to find candidates for their company. And now they're reaching out because their number one thing that they're doing to recruit people is not working and they're at a loss. Well, to me, that's just saying they have no other modes of prospecting out there to help them. And what they rely on all the time is not working and they don't know what to do. Doesn't mean they're a horrible recruiter. It just means they haven't done other modes of prospecting to produce other ways. And that's why it's important to expand and use other modes of prospecting. And that's what you have to do if you want to be a great recruiter. If you just want to be an okay recruiter, then you take one of these modes of prospecting and you just do it. And sometimes it works, but when it goes dry, then what do you do? And that's what I'm talking about when I do all these episodes. And I do it because I care about it and I want other people to just let me know, like, hey, you're right, this works. I've done it for a long time and I know it works. So with that, thanks for joining the John the Recruiter podcast. Remember to follow me. Let me know your thoughts on what you think so far. We're in episode number 6. I have 2 more prospecting modes left to go, and then we're going to get more in depth. So happy mining, stay motivated, and be relentless. Thank you for listening to the JTR podcast. I retired in 2018 from the United States Navy as a Master Chief, and most recently was a Director of Recruiting for a company with over 80,000 employees. With over 25 years of experience in recruiting and recruiting leadership in some of the most challenging fields and markets. Stay tuned for more tips to be relentless. Stay motivated.